colder, 6 to 8 Celsius for the Northern Isles. Then into Saturday, any brighter but colder weather in the far north tends to disappear once again as higher pressure builds in, pushing the weather front northeastwards and bringing milder but cloudier weather across the whole of the country. So the weekend offers more of the same. A lot of cloud, 1 or 2 brighter spells from time to time, relatively mild for the time of year.
We can expect clear skies, leading to a light and warm day ahead. Lovely. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
We're giving you the chance to win everything you need to celebrate the festivities. There's £20,025 in tax-free cash. There's £5,000 to spend on gifts for all the family. There's £500 to spend in your favourite supermarket. And a festively themed GB News goodie bag. We'll get it all to you in time for the big day. For your chance to win, call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2, or post your name and number to GB09 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 22nd of November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Britain's Newsroom, weekday mornings from 9:30.
Let's talk to Roger Kisker, who is the legal counsel for the Christian Legal Centre. Good morning, Roger. I'm really impressed, actually, by the fact that this school is taking the government to court on this. It's the only way we might get any sort of change. How important is it for these families who find a local religious school to keep their children in there? And are they all billionaires awash with cash?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, this is about the fundamental right to educate your children in conformity with your religious beliefs. That's a right guaranteed under the European Convention of Human Rights. And any legislation, primary or secondary, has to be compatible with that convention. And so the basis of our claim is that this is an unfair tax, because every country in the EU, first of all, it was by directive that there was no VAT on private education. In the Council of Europe, which is 56 member states, there are no other countries which put VAT on private education. This is an attack on school choice, and this is an attack on honest, hardworking parents who simply want to have their kids educated in a manner which they want them to be raised by themselves. And that, in a democratic nation, should be a given.
Obviously, Labour's logic being, just to provide some balance here, Roger, is that families who send their children to private school can afford the extra 20%. Whether they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 children at school, they should be able to afford it, and the schools should be able to absorb some of that cost. And that money will be spent in the state sector. Can you see the logic behind the reasoning?
To be honest, I can't, because not every school is Eton. Not every parent has the means to send their children to private education.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Court cases.
A presidential dropout.
Assassination attempts.
This has been a US election like no other.
And if the polls are correct, it's on a knife edge.
On Tuesday night, stay up with us as the drama unfolds and America decides their next president.
We'll discuss what it means for them, for the world, and for our special relationship. America Decides, Tuesday night from 11.
Only on GB News.
Hello, it's 11 o'clock, which means it's time for Headliners. Join us over the next hour to find out, where is this man? Hopefully not in front of the studio. Why less of these means that baby boomers really are the luckiest generation. And is there so much thing as too many poppies? My guests tonight are Nick Dixon and Leo Kearse. This is Headliners. But before tomorrow's news, here's tonight's headlines with Mark White.
Hello there. The main headlines from the GB News Centre. An Afghan migrant who appeared to threaten Nigel Farage over social media has been detained by UK authorities. Madha Pasa, who has a Kalashnikov tattoo on his face, was arrested by immigration officers at Dover earlier on Thursday. A Scotland Yard spokesperson has confirmed that detectives investigating threats to kill an MP are now liaising with colleagues from Border Force. Well, the arrest comes as GB News can reveal around 800 small boat migrants have crossed illegally from France in just 2 days. The latest arrivals take the total to just a few hundred, away from 31,000 for the year so far. That figure is already more than 1,200 ahead of the number who crossed during the whole of last year. The Chancellor has defended her budget, which amounts to the biggest tax hike in a generation. Rachel Reeves told GB News that the £40 billion a year in extra tax was a one-off. It would, she said, fix the fiscal black hole and provide a shot in the arm for the public services.
This is a one-off budget. It is to wipe the slate clean and fix the foundations after the black hole we were left by the Conservatives. But we're not going to need to come back in another budget and do anything like this again. We have now taken the action to get our public finances on a stable path. And, Chris, we've set the spending envelope for the rest of this Parliament, so we don't need to come back for more. And, indeed, we've moved to annual budgets rather than having them twice a year. So families and business can have confidence. We're not going to come back and ask for more money in the spring like the Conservatives kept doing. We have now set the budgets for public spending for this Parliament.
The Spanish government has confirmed the death toll from the devastating floods has now risen to 158. Rescue efforts are continuing as authorities deal with the worst flooding in the country in decades. Dozens of people are still missing after huge areas were inundated in the eastern province of Valencia. It's from there that Sophie Reaper sent this report.
Here in central Valencia, it's a very different story to the one taking place in the city's outskirts, where the destruction is massive. The clean-up operation is well underway and that death toll continues to rise. And that may well not be the end of things. The Spanish Prime Minister is warning people to stay at home because the danger may not yet have passed. And the Spanish forecaster has suggested that over the coming days, there may well be further heavy rain.
Donald Trump has announced he's suing the US broadcaster CBS for $10 billion. The lawsuit follows an interview the broadcaster aired with his Democratic rival Kamala Harris. The Trump campaign claims that interview, which was broadcast in early October, was doctored and misleading. Well, there you go. You're right up to date. Now over to the very best news reviewers in the land. It's Headliners.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello and welcome to Headliners, your first look at Friday's top stories with three comedians. I'm Josh Howie, and with me tonight is Leo Kearse and Nick Dixon. How are you both?
Yeah, good, thanks.
You all right, Nick?
Yeah, I'm well. I'm looking forward to buying a farm, but that's all been ruined by the budget. I don't know what to do.
I don't know, they're going to go cheap now.
Right, oh, yeah, that's another angle.
Isn't bought a farm, that's like a euphemism for, like, dying. Quite apt for this budget.
OK, first things first, hot off the press, we're going to crank through the front pages. We have the Daily Mail, Reeves tax raid to cost charities $1.4 billion a year. The Guardian, Reeves told she will have to raise a further $6 billion for public services. Daily Telegraph, markets turn on Reeves over tax burden. The Times, soaring costs of sickness claims. The Sun, a kick in the bollocks. And the Daily Star, what did they do with the drunken sailor? Right, we're going to have a closer look at those front pages, and we're going to start with The Guardian, Leo.
So The Guardian leads with the budget, of course, with Reeves told she will have to raise a further £9 billion for public services. I think it was already at 100 million, billion, trillion decillion pounds.
So what's another 9 billion between friends?
This is just the black hole keeps getting bigger. The reason it's getting bigger this time is because of the budget. The budget was such a calamity that it actually tanked the pound, it tanked the financial markets, kind of similar to what happened with Liz Truss's budget. So the price of borrowing, the cost of borrowing for the UK government is soaring. So it's gone up. So now she's going to have to, it's going to cost more to borrow money to pay for all the public services that she wants to do. And really, what she should have done is said, we're going to slash public services. Obviously, they're communists. They're never going to do that. But what she should have done is come out, like Javier Milei and been like, afuera, Arts Council, gone. All this money we're spending on illegal immigrants, gone. It's all going. Diversity and equity coordinators, gone. All these local authorities, gone. We're going to coagulate them into one big authority. And this is supposed to be a one-off budget. If you believe that socialists are going to put taxes down in the future, then I've got some magic beans to sell you.
Wouldn't that be the idea, that they make it hard now and then in a few years' time they can then be like, oh, no, we're going to cut taxes now and it's going to be great for everybody.
So do you think in a few years' time when we're eating out of our bins, not even our own bins, because why would we put food in our bins if we're going to eat out of the bins? When we're eating out of other people's bins, eating our pets and stuff, you think that they're going to be like,
they're eating the pets?
Unfortunately, I can come to Nick for balance here. I mean, Nick, to be fair, there have been issues with the global stock market today. It's not just the UK.
Right.
And also the IMF, I know you're big fans of them, but they've come out and said this budget was pretty sweet.
Well, but the IFS have said something different. The Institute for Fiscal Studies, they're talking about this extra $9 billion that should be forced to bring in later, which will to avoid real-term cuts to Whitehall departments. I don't pretend to understand all this, but they're saying that she's only pretending to splurge, that they're going to splurge, and actually she's going to cut back later. And apparently it might even be like a mini trust situation, because this higher short-term borrowing means that the Bank of England is going to have to abandon their plan to cut interest rates. So people are comparing it to trust. They're not saying it's exactly like that, but it would be funny if they had a kind of trust situation after all the mocking of trust. And I just want to say one more thing. I'm not an expert on economics, but Dolly Parton here says she can't retire, and I'm wondering if that's because of the budget that's affected her as well. Was she going to pass on a farm? I'm not sure exactly.
She lives in Texas, so I think it's pretty warm at winter. So she should be all right to get the...
big ranches.
Yeah, exactly. All right, well, let's move on to the Mail then, Nick.
So the Mail has Reeve's tax rate to cost charities $1.4 billion a year. I suppose this is quite a clever sort of Mail angle, like, you haven't even thought of the charities. And so...
Don't you think of the charities?
Yeah, it's quite a good angle. It's sort of a good way to get Labour back, because obviously they're supposed to care about things like charity. But who will think of the charities? That's what I say, because they'll be forced to axe services, lay off staff, and even shut down as a result of Labour's tax bombshell. Bombshell's a good Mail word. And there'll be no exemption for charity employees, the Treasury said. So this is another angle, another set of people that will be unhappy with the budget. And the Spice Girls plan to do an Oasis, which presumably means exploit their fans on some sort of very bad website.
You sound Marxist about pop music.
Huh?
You sound Marxist.
No, I've changed, Leo. I'm a lefty now.
I would rather see Spice Girls than Oasis.
I'd like to see them both doing the same songs. But yeah, this is just more devastation from the budget. Although I think charities now, we've got this idea that charities are just run by these selfless souls, these little ladies who stand behind the counter and raise money and do it for free. And it's not at all. You've got people like David Miliband, who's on an insane salary. I think it's over £1 million.
Worth every penny.
So a lot of charities are just a way of laundering money to bureaucrats.
And they also love disasters, don't they? Oxfam are just always sort of sneaking around like, where's the next tsunami?
Yeah.
Because they love it.
It's their job.
But they just wait. It's perverse incentives. They just wait. How do we know they're not causing the tsunamis and floods?
Exactly, because they're good for business.
Going a bit Lewis.
I sound like Lewis, yeah.
And also, when there is a tsunami, the first thing to think about is how can we make this about transgender people?
Yes, well, mermaids, I wouldn't mind losing their money.
Well, they'd do all right in a tsunami. They could swim away.
They would smash it.
Yeah. There's another Ozempic story. Oh, no, this is giving up booze. We have Brian E. Gordon there.
Yeah.
And one of the side effects of giving up booze is that you have to sort of have a sultry photo for a newspaper.
You have to write about it in lots of national newspapers.
Look at me, I
gave up booze. I've still given up booze. You've got so many booze-related articles.
I think there's going to be some lawsuits coming out about Ozempic or similar. Was it semaglutide? Is that one of the drugs?
So someone did it on Twitter or X today. So they did say that they're taking it just so they can be part of
The class action.
Yeah, class action. It's very funny. Leo, the Sun has out of all of the sort of unintended consequences of the budget, I think the Sun has the biggest one, the greatest issue.
Yeah, and this is how the budget is going to absolutely hammer farmers, possibly destroy family farms in the UK forever, which I think, you know, all right, we can talk about financial impacts in other areas, but this, you know, strikes to the real soul of the UK and what it means to be British and how we actually sustain ourselves as a country. Because if these family farms go, then who's going to grow the food? Basically, there's going to be there used to be exemption on inheritance tax passing down a farm. This made perfect sense because if you're running a farm, even though people think, oh, you're rich, you've got a big house, you've got a shiny tractor, you've got all this land, you're actually only gleaning a very sort of minimal living off that land, and
it's enough to buy a Range Rover.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up around, I grew up in the countryside. There are some rich farmers. But even that, I mean, the return on investment for some of these farms is like 2%. So, they're not really making.
And it's a hard life. You've got to work for it.
If they have, and it's really hard work. And if they have to pay 20% inheritance tax when they pass it down to the next generation, that's going to destroy them. They won't even be able to get a loan to do that because you're not making enough money off the land to pay the interest on the loan. Never mind the loan itself. So what's going to happen is a lot of businesses, big businesses, offshore investment funds, China are going to buy up British. They're going to buy British farms. They're going to use them for carbon offsetting, and then eventually, Kira will tell us, oh, don't worry, we can import tomatoes from Kenya or whatever. What happens when there's a war? What happens when we fall out with Kenya? Eventually we're going to starve to death.
So, Nick, there's up to a 1 million exemption here, but as people argue in these articles, that 1 million's hardly anything when it comes to the value of the property.
Because you've got this large patch of land, so people, 1 million doesn't really get you very far, and people hear that and go, oh, you're rich, you're a farmer. Of course you're not. The value's in the land. You just maintain it, you pass it on. That's in jeopardy now, as Leo's saying. I saw a gentleman on GB News said, look, it's going to cost me 120 grand just to pass on my farm. I don't even turn that over. We don't even make that money. Where am I going to get this from? So another farmer said he can't afford to die. They're all saying things like this. I'm amazed. If I was going to alienate one whole segment of society, it wouldn't be the people who are known for getting up very early and owning shotguns. That's all I'm saying.
Actually, because they're talking. We haven't sort of had. You've had it in Canada with the lorry drivers, and you had in Europe. You had all the tractors. We haven't really ever had that here. Do you think that this could develop?
Yeah,
now we're going to have some tractors on the M1?
I've spoken to a couple of mates who, they're not farmers.
Some of your billionaires.
But they're not farmers, but they own land and stuff. And they
own guns.
They know about
They've got a tractor or two.
But honestly, people are worried. Farmers are worried that if they do anything like that, they'll go to jail for infinity, like what happened with people who are upset about girls getting stabbed.
Yeah, but one does say here, if Labour stick with this, I'll be the first to drive my tractor down to London. And they are the natural enemies of Labour. They're rural. Labour hates rural communities. They do well in cities, and they want us all eating the bugs and Bill Gates' synthetic meat anyway. So they don't care about food production.
Farmers have got all those pesticides, so it's very anti-bug eating.
Okay, now by the way, I'm moving on to the next story, not because they mentioned Bill Gates and I'm some sort of controlled media source that's like, don't mention Bill Gates! Move on quickly. The Times, Nick.
Yeah,
don't mention Bill Gates.
Don't mention Bill Gates. The Times has soaring cost of sickness claims, just kidding, half of welfare benefit payouts soon to be for poor health. Now, I'm just a layman on this, but I thought, of course, benefits payments are for poor health. So I was a bit confused by that. Maybe someone can explain it to me. But the point is, we're not going to get better services.
Well, as opposed to being unemployed, I imagine.
Yeah. So sickness benefits are going to cost us all our money, basically.
Yeah.
And we're not going to get better services because it's all just going down this black hole. And weekly wages have risen just £13 in 20 years. So, we've got a massive problem with the benefit system. Everyone knows this. And then the other story is about the markets taking fright and how Reeves is the new trust again.
Yeah. I mean, Leo, how are they going to get people off sickness benefit?
They don't want to get people off welfare. Labour want a dependent, compliant population who completely subsist at the mercy of the state. Yeah. So having people on welfare is perfect for them. It's basically a slow drift into communism.
I mean, I would argue they do want them off because they want to save some of these billions.
If they wanted to make money, they'd be cutting taxes. They'd be cutting the public sector.
She says,
they'd be making welfare.
She's going to get
they'd be cutting welfare. They're not getting tough with welfare at all.
We'll see. I just don't think we can afford it, to be honest. And then finally, the Daily Star, Leo.
So the Daily Star has what did they do with the drunken sailor? So this is a story. Are we covering this later on?
No, we're going to do it now.
Right. Do you know what number it is? So I can
13, yeah.
find my notes.
Charity
13.
changes.
Cool.
Yes, so this is Scottish Book Trust, isn't it?
Yeah, this is Scottish Book Trust that has changed the words to nursery rhymes, such as "What shall we do with a drunken sailor?", which has some problematic lines such as "Shave his belly with a rusty razor" and "Do a little jig." So they've changed that to "Do a little jig and make him smile." And instead of putting him in a longboat until he's sober, it's been changed to "Tickle him until he starts to giggle." These changes sound like they're written by Jimmy Savile, to be honest. I mean, I think you shouldn't be putting your fingers anywhere near a grumpy pirate. But yes, it's disgusting. Also, they're saying kids are suggestible, so we shouldn't mention alcohol, we shouldn't mention anything like that. So, you know, all this transgender stuff you're pushing in front of the kids, is that having an impact on them as well?
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe we shouldn't mention that you're born in the wrong body, because that might be an idea that they take on.
I was worried we weren't going to mention trans. Well done for getting there.
What do we do with a transgender sailor
puberty
who thinks that he's cut off his bits?
What do we do with a class action lawsuit? I mean, yeah, they're changing it, drunken sailor to grumpy pirate, which is already absurd. Unless the lyrics are "send him back to Rwanda," which I wouldn't mind, I could get behind that. But the lyrics, they're Philistines, because they don't even scan the metre and syntax and cadence is completely wrong. So "shave his belly with a rusty razor," this works, it's 10 syllables. "Do a little jig and make him smile" is 9. "Put him in a longboat till he's sober." You can feel how the rhythm works. "Tickle him till he starts to giggle." Again, it's the wrong syllable. So artistically, they've destroyed it as well. These people don't care about art. They only care about vandalising the culture. They care about being killjoys.
Also, the reasons, the idea it's going to be offensive, or that it's going to damage children. It's like children are going to listen to these nursery rhymes and go, "Oh, all sailors are drunkards." Because I heard it in a nursery rhyme. Or, but also, Boy in the Lane. They got the...
Oh, yeah, the little boy who lives down lane is the baby who lives down lane.
No girls live in lanes. That's what they're going to think.
And they're getting rid of "if you're happy and you know it" and changing it to "if you're angry and you know it, stamp your feet. If you're sad and you know it, have a cry."
I'm angry with this story. Right, that's the front pages thoroughly looked at. Join us after the break for a look at the new Tsar appointment. That's an absolute bargain. And find out what Trump might ban. See you in 2.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
Let's speak now to Charlie Mullins, who's the founder of Pimlico Plumbers, and entrepreneur Oliver Hodgson. Really good to see you both this morning. Charlie, let's start with you. Has working from home and the culture surrounding working from home killed work experience, do you think?
Undoubtedly. Many companies now are not getting youngsters in for the work experience because of the fact they don't have the staff in. So if they're only in 2 days a week, they're not going to get in the youngsters. They've got no one to train them. So it's killed it totally. And if you think it's bad now, probably 4 or 5 years from now, it'll be absolutely ridiculous. This working from home, I said from day one, is going to kill youngsters' futures, youngsters' careers, and getting people into the workplace. So now the damage is showing through, unfortunately. COVID finished a couple of years ago. The working from home should have stopped and get people back into the workplace.
I mean, Oliver, you have to say it's difficult to see how people in a work-from-home environment can do any sort of on-the-job training at all.
It's really interesting, the work experience piece, actually, because we run an internship program in the summer here. We had 5 people in the office in person and they really thrived, but we did have a couple of people who joined remotely because of their own reasons, right, and where they were. I think it's a bit more nuanced than that as well, because I've got clients who have completely remote teams. Now, I don't. I have an office and our team are based in here, but our clients who do, they're able to offer work experience opportunities digitally with fantastic technology to people across the world, right? So they have people in their team who are working from all sorts of different continents, which is obviously fantastic. But I agree with Charlie, right? You cannot knock in-person engagement. You cannot knock being in the office.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+ and on the GB News app. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player app. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with GB News Radio. We are the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Welcome back to Headliners. I'm Josh Howie, still joined by Leo Kearse and Nick Dixon. We have a little message in the break from the Your Say. We have Sealock saying, is Lewis asleep under the desk? The answer is no, he's awake. Right, we're going to get started with Friday's Telegraph, Nick, and it has an Onion headline for us, but the old Onion when it used to be funny.
Yeah, when it was good. Value for money czar to get equivalent of 250k salary. So, yes, he's the value for money czar, but he's getting 250k. The jokes write themselves, which is lucky because I haven't written any. But, yeah, this guy, David Goldstone, so his name's even got gold in it, and he just rakes it in. They go through all these examples when he made all this money. So he also, the Olympics... He previously oversaw delivery of the London Olympics, where costs spiraled to $9.35 billion, which was 4 times the initial estimate. He was
worth every penny.
We all remember it. He was paid a salary of $247,000, significantly more than Starmer's, $166,000. So this guy gets more than Starmer.
Well, he would if he was work. This is one of those misleading headlines. So it's an annual salary, but it's the equivalent. So he's actually only working 1 day a week, but he's charging a grand.
It's like when David Brent gets 250 quid or whatever, and he says pro rata.
Pro rata, yeah. So you're right. It's 9. So yeah, it's
but
9.
I know one thing. He has a 350 grand salary if he worked every day of the week.
Yes, £950. But he's only going to work 1 day, so that's that. But yeah, I see what you mean. Sorry, I didn't read that properly. So, yeah, they just go through all these examples when he's wasted money. He was chief operating officer at the Ministry of Defence between 2017 and 2020, and they were accused of repeatedly wasting taxpayers' money. So it's stuff like this. It's the waste czar. I mean, who knows what he's going to do?
Yeah, I mean, but then, Leo, arguably, this guy's would be really good at this job. He's done so much of it.
He's been so experienced of wasting money. He knows exactly. He's going to be a poacher turned gamekeeper. No, this is just... The government is just wasting money. This is all governments do. The best thing that a government can do is provide some sort of Keynesian stimulus. But you don't need a Keynesian stimulus in an economy like ours where there's actually quite a tight job market. What we really need to do is slash the public sector so those people can go into the private sector and generate wealth for the country.
We need someone like Musk, what he's going to do in the US. He's been brought in just to radically cut down the government. We need an autistic man to come in, ideally like the richest man in the world, and who's got loads of rockets, and just cut our government down massively.
Yeah.
We have nothing like that.
What we need is a host who knows what Keynesian means. Right, the Express, Leo, and I think I saw this guy outside the studio asking for an autograph.
So, yeah, this is the migrant who threatened to kill Nigel Farage has crossed the English Channel. This is Mada Pasa, who has a Kalashnikov rifle tattooed on his face.
I'm going to get one of those.
Yeah, I mean, I'm starting to think that Al-Qaeda aren't sending their best people. You know what I mean? This guy, we're told these are future doctors and engineers. I don't trust this guy to build bridges or operate, open
metaphorically or literally.
Yeah, either.
Because I think he'll build great bridges with that.
He wants to marry Nigel Farage's sister.
Yeah.
That's
a bridge.
He's offered his hand as marriage.
Yeah,
Nigel, have you seen Nigel's sister?
And Labour are going to give him a 250k salary, I just heard as well, which is good.
But yeah, so he's left France on Wednesday night and he's come across the Channel. Apparently he's been detained. But Mr. Farage said, "Is this really the kind of man we want in Britain?" But for left-wing people, yes, they want lots of immigrants who want to kill Nigel Farage and probably anybody else who's
more
British.
Gun face tattoos, the better, really.
Here's my question: do tattoo artists ever say, "Are you sure, mate?" Are you thinking about your future employment prospects? What if you change career and you're no longer a sort of crazy TikTok thug and you want to go and be like an accountant? The whole gun on the face thing, some frown upon that still in 2024, I've heard. On a serious note, it is very worrying for Nigel Farage because, you have this stochastic terrorism, as it was a left-wing invented phrase, but where you encourage people to do violence through rhetoric. Farage has basically had that. He had that cement thrown at him, various other things. He has to go everywhere with security. He sees this guy. You can imagine he was very worried, but hopefully now he will be detained and he'll be safe.
Well, and the fact that he got over here in the first place.
Mad.
It's incredible that people like this are abusing asylum rules that were set up 70 years ago for a completely different world.
Well, he hasn't abused them yet.
Different criminals.
Obviously the EHRC are going to make sure he stays in Britain and ends up, getting loads of taxpayers' money. It's a complete sham.
All right, well, Telegraph, Nick, and would this be enough for you to take back your endorsement of Kamala?
I'm thinking about it. So Trump could bring back a Muslim ban if elected president. according to this story, I mean, I'm not sure how much there is to it. Stephen Miller is being cited as sort of talking about this kind of thing. He's concerned about immigration. He's pointing out things like refugee resettlement is technically legal, chain migration is legal, the diversity lottery is legal, Islamist green card migration is legal. So he's talking about looking at this travel ban again. The Muslim ban was a little bit of an overblown thing. It was a sort of, I thought it was like a Steve Bannon policy, and he's been in prison. We're sort of in the Musk era of the Trump sort of team now, so I'm not sure that there will be a Muslim ban, but it was about banning people from certain countries. What Trump will do, though, I think, is have a targeted immigration policy. Sorry, this isn't very funny, but he'll have a kind of targeted immigration policy. They're eating the dogs. I'll just chuck that in. But they'll have a targeted immigration thing, so where he's thinking about what countries are they coming from. With Musk, they do want immigration, but they want highly skilled engineers. They don't just want, you know, randos from around the world. I think that's what will happen.
Yeah, which sounds like a good system. I wish we could have, you know, some sort of system like they have in America or Australia. I mean, the Muslim ban before was, like Nick says, it's a bit overblown because, I mean, if you look at countries like Jordan or Lebanon, they were completely destabilised by waves of Muslim refugees and just Muslim immigration. But the Muslims in America tend to be different. They tend to be higher skilled. They tend to integrate much more and see themselves as American. What's interesting is also they're voting for Trump now because, you know, they don't like what Kamala Harris and the Biden administration are doing in Gaza and the Middle East. Or not doing. But what's interesting is in some places in America, so in Hamtramck in Michigan, it got the first Muslim majority council in the whole of the United States. And the first thing they did, and obviously left-wing liberals helped the Muslims get this majority. The first thing the Muslim council did was ban the pride flag.
Yeah, I think
it's hilarious.
I think that any Muslim voters of Trump are going to be very disappointed.
No, I think they'd be delighted.
No, I don't think they are. I think that Trump is an ardent supporter of Israel. He is going to, and I think that they're going to go, they're going to be like me voting Labour, to be honest. Right, let's move on to the Telegraph and tragic story of a son in mourning, Leo.
Yeah, this really is terrible. So this is the son of the first rioter to die in prison. Wants to know why he was jailed in the first place. You know, and it's quite telling that they say the first rioter to die in prison, as if, you know, the Telegraph are assuming there are going to be more, and there could well be. Given the high Muslim population, the target that's on rioters' backs. But yeah, this is Casey Lynch, who's the son of Peter Lynch, who tragically took his own life. And he's demanding an investigation into the sentencing and also questions why his father's 2 previous suicide attempts are not being taken or were not taken seriously enough. Yeah. And this is, I mean, this is really sort of emblematic of the two-tier system. You know, we saw rioters immediately condemned as being far right, even if they were just standing there holding a placard and shouting stuff. All his father did, his father was sentenced to 2 years and 8 months. All he did was, I mean, he shouted some abuse at police. He was part of a crowd that shouted scum and child killers at police. And he also held placards saying that the government are corrupt. And, you know,
but at that riot, 64 police officers were injured, 4 dogs and a horse. He has been found guilty of incitement to violence, violent disorder, and he pled guilty. I'm just saying.
Well, this is the thing.
This isn't like a tweet or something. He was out there.
He pleaded guilty. Why did he plead guilty? I assume he was given advice to plead guilty. We need to look at what the duty solicitors, this is the state-provided solicitors, what they were briefed. I mean, I'm hearing rumours from the criminal justice system that duty solicitors were briefed by the state, given, you know, guidance on how to treat the rioters.
I mean, these are rumours, it has to be said.
The solicitor is supposed to act on behalf of the client, and it looks as though the solicitors have been acting on behalf of the state.
That is a rumour. I would argue that the issue here is that the fact if he has a history of mental health, that wasn't taken seriously by the prison.
I mean, I'd also say 2 years and 8 months for holding a placard and shouting. I mean, that's an outrage.
Yeah. Okay. I agree.
Do you want to say anything?
Yeah, I'm just shocked that he was even in prison. Certainly when we see the kind of people that are being let out, we hear all kinds of stories, and it's just a horrible, tragic story. Should he have even been in there in the first place? I don't know.
Well, OK, then, we're going to go for a break now. We're halfway through. Come back to find out why Jesus might be feeling a bit let down and why your nan is healthier than you and why garages are due a reformation. Don't go away.
Hi there, welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Next 24 hours bring more of the same sort of weather for many of us. Overcast, rain and wind in the far north, but some brighter spells at times elsewhere. There have been some brighter spells through the day. They're tending to remain in places overnight, but for the vast majority it stays cloudy and it's wet and windy in the far north of Scotland. Some heavy rain moving into the mainland of northern Scotland as well as Orkney, the Outer Hebrides overnight, accompanied by a strong wind. That rain also reaching parts of northwest England and Northern Ireland, some drizzly stuff over the hills. Further south and further east, some cloud breaks, and where we do have some cloud breaks first thing, there'll be a few mist patches and temperatures in the single figures. And it will be a colder start for the far north of Scotland as the rain and wind clear through. The wind changes direction, so 5 Celsius there for Shetland. But otherwise, it's double figures for much of Scotland with the strong wind continuing. A lot of low cloud for western Scotland, some cloud breaks in eastern Scotland, but rain tending to move south. Northern Ireland, Northern England, low cloud, some drizzle about. But for southern parts, we start the day with either cloudy skies or some fog patches first thing. Any fog tending to clear. And then once again, those areas that saw some sunshine on Thursday are well placed to see sunny spells again on Friday. So the south and southwest, as well as the northeast. But we've got this area of cloud and rain sinking south across central Scotland. Brighter skies to the north of it, but feeling colder, 6 to 8 Celsius for the Northern Isles. Then into Saturday, any brighter but colder weather in the far north tends to disappear once again as higher pressure builds in, pushing the weather front northeastwards and bringing milder but cloudier weather across the whole of the country. So the weekend offers more of the same. A lot of cloud, 1 or 2 brighter spells from time to time, relatively mild for the time of year.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. Let me first say thank you to Sealog, who again has written in with another joke. Madapasa has changed since he was in the night garden. Very good. Should I come out that myself? You guys don't have kids.
What's the night garden?
Oh, I didn't get it.
I've got a kid.
Madapasa, in the night garden, the Teletubbies and whatever.
Is there a Al Qaeda operative in the night garden?
Yes.
Explains a lot about this country.
The best jokes are the ones you have to explain.
I thought it was good. Thank you for writing it. Right. Let's get into Friday's Telegraph. Someone's being a bit judgy, Nick.
Yeah, this is Justin Welby accused of abandoning Church of England.
Buddy.
My buddy Welby, Welbers as I call him. He's been accused of abandoning Church of England doctrine over same-sex relationship comments. And he said all sexual activity should be within a committed relationship, whether it's straight or gay. In other words, we're not stopping the idea, we're not giving up on the idea that sex is within marriage or civil partnership, or whether marriage is civil or religious. So now, of course, actual Christians have hit back and said this is completely wrong. And Lambeth Palace has pointed out this is just his own personal view. And he's giving a view that is his view, but it's not the view of anyone else. So it's Welby being sort of woke Welby. We've heard about woke Welby before. And really, the Church of England now, as we know, it's a wing of the total state. It's another institution that's progressive, like all institutions. And it has to do occasional little churchy things to pretend it's still a church. But this is very much in keeping with everything Welby does. It's woke Welby.
Leo, is he
woke Welby?
Is he being a bigot here? Because he only mentions gay or straight, but he doesn't mention the LGBTQIA plus 2S.
Doesn't mention furries.
Yeah.
Doesn't mention people who dress up as My Little Ponies or cats. No, and also he doesn't mention, what if you want to express your devotion to God through being promiscuous? He says you can't do that.
Can I just quickly add, I don't want to make it sound like I'm against gay people. I am, but I don't want to make it sound like that.
Well, is there a thing here where I thought he was...
I get in trouble.
But I mean, there could be an accusation here where you could say that he's accusing gay men of being promiscuous.
Yeah, you could actually make that. You know, I don't think he is. He's trying to say, like, now that you've got same-sex marriage, the same rules apply as marriage, which is try and keep it in the marriage, guys. That's basically all it is. But it's more like just advice. It's not really church doctrine. It's just like, this is what I would do.
I think the Church of England needs to get back to being like, when I look at the church in the old days, you know, when they were wearing chainmail and they were on horses and they had swords. That was so much more compelling than this nonsense. He's like the sort of groovy vicar.
Yeah. You want a new Crusades, basically.
I want a new crusade. That'd be perfect.
Didn't think you were going to agree with that, but
it's quite interesting here how he's saying, when he was asked 7 years ago, is gay sex sinful? And he said he couldn't give a straight answer, which I imagine was his idea of a joke. But yes...
you saw what happened to Tim Farron. You lose your job if you give the wrong answer.
But then he said if he had a better answer, he said, yes, I do, and then didn't give an answer.
No, because he's avoiding it. It's a ridiculous question, because Tim Farron got stumped by that question, because sin only exists in the religious Christian context anyway. So when they say, is gay sex a sin, they're trying to...
Well, it exists in religious context.
Religious context, but they're trying to trick you into saying it's bad. That's what they mean. But if you say yes, they go, we've got him, you know, cancel him. But really, it doesn't make sense outside of a religious context anyway.
You can never cancel Welby.
True.
The Times next, and they really are the golden generation, Leo, the rotters.
So this is why post-war rationing helped boost the health of baby boomers. So people born during the years when sugar and sweets were rationed, which was from the war up until 1953. I don't know why it lasted so long after the war, like basically another decade. They grew up to have
the debt of defeating the Nazis.
The debt. Well, that's what we're going to have to deal with after this Labour administration. So baby boomers grew up to have a 35% lower risk of developing type 2 diabetes and a 20% lower risk of high blood pressure by the time they reached their 50s and 60s, researchers have discovered, because they were eating a better diet. They weren't having as much sugar, and they were generally having less food overall. That's what rationing is. Again,
and also they didn't have roofs, because they'd all been bombed out, you know.
They did. They built new towns. They built Milton Keynes.
I thought they were a bit healthy.
But we're seeing now that some of the guidance that we're seeing around food, around, you know, you should eat lots of carbs and you should eat margarine, you should eat seed oils and all that sort of stuff. That's now getting rolled back, and you know, so we're seeing a push against ultra-processed food. We're seeing a push for more natural things, and things like butter, things like red meat that were previously seen as really haram are coming back into
Lewis Schaefer corner there.
Yeah. I mean, it was really the Ozempic of its time, wasn't it? Rationing. It was a simpler system, and my only concern about this, even though it made everyone healthier and was brilliant in that sense, my only worry is, like, don't give Labour ideas, because they could easily bring it back, couldn't they? Wouldn't Reeves just bring it back?
What is it? Yes, but it's also about just being pregnant as well. If you eat less sugar when you're pregnant, it has that exactly the same effect.
But people binged, didn't they? When it ended, they all that's my concern. They all went sugar crazy, and it doubled overnight, sugar consumption. They just binged.
The problem is that they really are the luckiest generation, because they had the end of rationing. Now they're the healthiest ones. They had the
money, houses.
revolution. They had children in the 60s,
wages,
all the money and stuff like that. And now they're going to live super duper long because they don't have diabetes, so we can't even inherit any money.
But they do now have in the back of the mind the fact that Rachel Reeves is going to take all their inheritance off them.
Yeah, we got there in the end.
And their farm.
Shocking news in the Express, Nick. Mechanics haven't yet had their Me Too movement.
No, when will it come? So women urged, get a second opinion for repairs as half face sexism at garages, or garages if you're Southern. So the claim is that, you know, they're sexist. But when I read the article, my overwhelming feeling is like, that's just mechanics.
Yes.
Like, you go to the mechanic, you're intimidated, you don't know what they said, you have to go, yes. They go, that's £8,000. You go, I'm sorry. And then you leave. You know, that's how it works, because you don't understand your car. Unless Leo probably does, he understands, like, weapons and stuff. But, of course, everyone's intimidated, so it's not really just women, is it? I think every man is the same, unless they're unless they're Michael Schumacher in his prime.
Yeah, I mean,
is that his name?
It's ridiculous, the idea. It says here, 60% of women admitting feeling anxious. I would say 80% of men or whatever. I mean, I go in there and when I go to the mechanic, I sort of mention I've got lots of kids and I'm really poor. I try and get them to take pity on me.
Right.
Do you know your stuff? Do you know your car?
Yeah. No, I've been going to the same mechanic for
so you trust
about
them?
a decade. I trust them, and they're really fair. They're really good. Audi specialists in Harrow. They're really good.
I go to the Ferrari specialist in Kensington, but yeah. By the way, and there are some good ones, can I just say, before I get all the tweets, you're right, there are some good ones most of them are very honest and great.
And I think women get charged more when they go to the mechanic because they've been driving around with a handbrake on.
Great point.
Yes. Well, I don't know how to counter that for Ofcom purposes. But
just say they can drive.
No, because I'm just thinking that's what my wife does. Right, last in this section, we have the Mirror. And Nick, I thought you said abortion clinics were the best place to chat up women.
That's outrageous. But this is distressing loophole with abortion clinic safety zones is another tactic to harass women. That's the Mirror's words, not mine. I mean, so they say, look, they've got these new safe access zones. Some people call them buffer zones that stop you so-called harassing women around abortion clinics. But they say that silent prayer...
It's so cool, though.
Well, the reason I say that is they're saying that silent prayer is not automatically banned. And that's what they're worried about. That's what they're calling the distressing loophole. But to me, it's how can it possibly be distressing if you're praying in your head? To ban that is a thought crime and is absurd. Although no one wants to harass women outside abortion clinics, obviously. Or some people do, but that wouldn't be covered by this.
I mean, this is why it was brought in, because this is unfortunately what was happening. People were screaming baby killers and whatnot.
Right, but why is it a distressing loophole to have the silent prayer loophole, which obviously should be in there?
Yeah, I mean, silent prayer, I mean, it's not even speech crime. It's not like criminalising what somebody says, which is already problematic, and we shouldn't really be doing it unless it's extreme situations. Criminalising what people are thinking in their head is like the next level Minority Report, like Philip Keith.
We've seen it happen.
You wouldn't last.
No, I know we've
you
seen
wouldn't
it.
last 10 minutes, Leo.
We've seen people literally getting. We've seen people literally getting arrested. We've seen videos of them getting arrested by the police, and it's absolutely Orwellian. I mean, Orwell didn't even go that far. You know, he just said it's like you'll be criminalised for what you say.
What did Orwell compare 1984 to? Because everybody else goes 1984. What did he do?
What do you mean?
Well, I'm just saying that everybody...
What was the benchmark for him? Was it like Brave New World, or what did he have?
Yeah,
you can't say it's like 1984.
So like 1984.
He'd have to say, it's like this thing I'm writing, you guys aren't going to believe it. It's so good.
He'd say it's like the situation we've got with the Soviet Union, I guess.
So why do people actually... Could you get out of jail by saying, no, I wasn't praying?
I mean, you could, but then, I mean, I guess the whole point of being a Christian is telling the truth, and so you don't want to lie to the police and say, no, I wasn't praying. But also...
But they've all won anyway. They've all won their cases because it's not against the law. Isabel Vaughan-Spruce et al. Have all won. I think maybe one person lost something recently. Most of them have won.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And also, you know, I mean, as much as I think women should have access to abortion, I think you've also got to acknowledge that you're, you know, killing a viable fetus. So some people are going to be upset about that, and I think it's an OK balance to have people standing and thinking.
OK, but what about people screaming in people's faces?
No, screaming's completely different.
OK, fine. All right, what about you? You agree with that, Nick?
Yeah, I mean, it's horrible to do that. So, but most people I know are just Christians who are very nice people who are just trying to help women, and they certainly would never dream of screaming at them. There'll always be a few nutters, I accept that.
Cool, fair enough.
Like
Well, I look forward to them tweeting Nick during the break. That's the end of part 3. Join us for the final section for seasonal fashion advice, the trick to keeping office workers happy, and discover which stereotypes are true. See you in a moment.
Britain's newsroom, weekday mornings from 9:30.
Maria, potholes, the bane of everybody that uses a road, whether you're a car driver or a cyclist. As a cyclist, they're even worse. How have we got into this situation where our roads are in such a bad state?
Well, part of it is to do with actually our climate. In somewhere like, say, Sweden, like the snow will fall on the ground, it will stay there for months. Whereas here we've got what's called a freeze-thaw climate, where the water comes down, then we might have a cold snap and it freezes, and the water within the pothole will then expand and make the pothole bigger. Then we might have a mild spell, and then that process repeats. So, you know, we do actually need extra funding to acknowledge the fact that, you know, we just live in a climate where we're sort of particularly vulnerable to potholes.
Why? I mean, you know, the fact that this happens, these weather conditions happen, is no great surprise to anybody. Why has the problem been ignored for so long?
I think what's happened is we've had, like, short-term funding. So it's like, oh, there's a pothole, let's patch it up. Oh, there's another one, let's patch it up. But the patches aren't actually really that strong, so then they break down again. So, you know, really what we need is to have roads completely resurfaced, and then they'll just be pothole-free for a very long time. And that really is how funding should be. That's the direction funding should go in, as opposed to just sort of like dribs and drabs here and there.
Do you think this government are going to be good for the motorist, or is there indeed a war on the motorist still?
The different parties come in and they've all got different policies that they wheel out, then they cancel the policies, and then there's so much lack of transparency. Like, for example, with the pothole issue, sometimes the government, whichever government is in office, will do some big showboating about how they're going to give X amount of potholes, and you still think that sounds really good.
GB News, the People's Channel. Weekdays on GB News. Wake up to breakfast every day from 6 a.m. Followed by Britain's newsroom at 9:30. At noon, it's Good Afternoon Britain. Followed by Martin Daubney from 3 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the final section of Headliners. Leo's going to kick things off with this Telegraph story about why the stereotype of TV presenters being great lovers is true.
So, estate agents are annoying and actors are extroverts. They've done this study, a huge study across hundreds of different professions to find out...
70,000 people.
70,000 people, 260 professions, to find out what the characteristics of those people are. And they found that job stereotypes are true. I mean, wait till they find out about other stereotypes. I've never seen a stereotype that didn't come true. But anyway, they found some interesting stuff. Like, apparently the professions with the most neurotic people include actors, journalists, and various other creative professions. So that's why we all cry in the taxi home.
Yeah, basically, and desperately search our name on Twitter.
And incredible findings, such as they found that artists tend to be imaginative and curious. I mean, man, did they need to do this study? I could have told them straight away.
Yeah. It seems like this Dr. Renee Motus, which is definitely the stereotypical name for some sort of scientist. She or he said that they didn't know that actors would be neurotic. It's like, have you ever met anybody in your life, you loser?
That is unbelievable, yeah. And narcissists, I mean, as they clearly are. Look, all stereotypes are true, as Leo says. Scottish people are tight, and I'll leave it there. But the thing is...
How have I got an Audi, then?
Huh?
How did I get an
Audi? Oh, yeah, good point. Not as good as my Ferrari. I'm sorry, Leo, I don't want to insult your whole nation. But, yeah, I mean, there is something in stereotypes. I see they've consulted...
Those types of cars, right?
They've consulted the Big Five personality traits, which Peterson's always on about, isn't he? The Big Five, have you heard him talk about that? High and agreeable... He says women are high in agreeableness.
What's Peterson? What type is he?
He's high in openness, and he's actually high in agreeableness. Creative people are high in openness, but some say it's actually not a good measure, because it says you're going to be liberal, but then sometimes you're not if you're high in openness, because we're in such a sort of liberal hegemony that actually being open could mean you're conservative.
Yeah.
Hopefully that's not too confusing for the time of night.
TV presenters are sexy.
And being agreeable can be a negative trait because it means you're more likely to succumb to groupthink.
No, it's not! More Telegraph, Nick. And which of your colleagues would you most like to swap for a cockapoo?
Great question. The new perk tempting employees back to the office. So corporate giants such as Uber and Google are trying to entice staff back by allowing them to bring pets into the office. Can you imagine? And that'll get even more chaotic if we brought pets in here. Some are completely against it, of course, because they have someone here has a sensory disorder, is allergic to dogs. I mean, it's not for everyone. If you've been mauled by a dog as a child, and then you've just got a dog roaming around the office, you're trying to do your job.
From personal experience, then?
No, but I mean, imagine like you're already working with Lewis Schaefer, then a dog comes in, you've been mauled, you're having sensory disorder with a dog, you're allergic to both of them, and it's just like I don't know. You can see how it gets out of hand. Some people love animals, some people don't. It's not going to take it out of the workplace. And plus, what if they start getting they're eating the dogs in the workplace? That could happen.
But Leo, there's a company here of single women who love having their pets at work.
Oh yeah, women love having a bringing pets into work. Anything apart from actually doing some work. I've often thought this table, you could have gerbils. If you just sealed off the edges, you could have gerbils scampering around under the plastic.
You've often thought that.
That'd be fun. every time I sit here, have a big habit trail.
OK then, Leo, the viewers have been commenting on your choice of Remembrance accessory this week. What does The Independent have to say about this?
Is it now acceptable to accessorise with a remembrance poppy? I'm not sure what accessorising is. I mean, I guess it's using it as a fashion thing instead of using it to pay respects.
Well, I think they're talking about people also having other stuff with poppies.
Well, they're saying Angela Rayner and Dawn Butler wear their paper poppy next to another poppy.
Double poppy.
So they did double poppy. But that's,
poppyflation, it's called.
I thought that's fine. And Green Party co-leader Carla Denyer wore hers next to an even bigger white poppy, which represents stuff that isn't just military personnel. It's very much the all lives matter of the poppy world.
Can you have a black poppy?
I don't know. Probably.
Maybe that's heroin.
You can get a transgender poppy. I bought
yeah, you got your £8, was it? Is that tax deductible?
I don't know.
That's one point, actually. I've heard that some people are boycotting the poppy because the British Legion are supporting Stonewall. Is that correct?
They did a few years ago. They're saying, British Stonewall are saying that.
But some people are boycotting still this year.
Yeah, because I think that was until they made it clear that this was from 2020.
OK. Because I heard that and I was conflicted for a second because I hate Stonewall, but I was like, no, I've still got to wear it for the troops that died and so on. So I still wear it. And I don't think it should be worn as an accessory. It should be worn, as a fashion thing, right? It shouldn't be worn as a fashion thing.
Yeah, but what do you think about this idea of the double poppy and the triple, and also the gold poppy? It's too many, like the people...
Too many, yeah.
There seems to be some sort of poppy war going on in terms of like an arms race.
An arms race, which is ironic that it's an arms race, really.
Well, it's Farage who wore the gold poppy, and I think that's that's quite classy. You can also get little enamel ones. They're nice. I mean, I think if people want to, however people want to express their respect to the troops is fine. I think if they want a double poppy, I don't really see that as accessorising. I think they're just wearing a poppy.
OK. All right, fair enough. Moving on to the Times. Nick, ever been tempted to have a pint with a spider monkey?
Well, that's a big question. I mean, alcohol consumption more abundant in wild than experts thought is the headline, and it's about most fruit and nectar-eating animals consume ethanol regularly, though there's no suggestion they go actively looking for it, so they're not quite like Scottish people. Sorry, I've done it again. I just had to come up with something, but people who drink...
I thought that this story was saying, Leo, that actually animals deliberately are possibly getting wasted, that there is evidence that it makes them more sociable and it releases dopamine.
Yeah, I've seen footage. I'm sure we've all seen
drunk
footage
monkeys.
when we were kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, monkeys and also other animals. So they eat the fruit that's been sitting on the floor because it ferments, and they know that it ferments. They leave it until it's fermented, and then they eat it and they get drunk. And
is it bush babies or something? I've seen pictures of
giraffes, all kinds.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think, but it is an interesting idea that it isn't just this human characteristic. They I don't know if they do any other kind of drugs.
And there's also other ways of getting
weed.
drunk. I found out today you can put brewer's yeast up your bottom and it sits in there and ferments and produces alcohol and makes you drunk. And you can actually fail...
I'm trying to... I didn't read that. Where was that?
You can.
This is extra work.
You can, but the question is, should you?
Thank you so much.
Right.
Particularly our morning audience are going to be very grateful for that story there. Right. The show is nearly over. Let's take another quick look at Friday's front pages. The Daily Mail. Reeves' tax raid to cost charities $1.4 billion a year. The Guardian. Reeves told she will have to raise a further $6 billion for public services. Daily Telegraph. Markets turn on Reeves over tax burden. The Times. Soaring costs of sickness claims. The Sun. A kick in the bullocks. And the Daily Star. What did they do with the drunken sailor? Hopefully that is the end of all things budget. That is it for tonight's show. Thank you very much to my guests, Leo and Nick. Steve and Alan will be here tomorrow at 11 p.m. with these guys. And if you're watching at 5 p.m, stay tuned for breakfast. Thanks for joining us.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there, welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Next 24 hours bring more of the same sort of weather for many of us. Overcast, rain and wind in the far north, but some brighter spells at times elsewhere. There have been some brighter spells through the day. They're tending to remain in places overnight, but for the vast majority it stays cloudy and it's wet and windy in the far north of Scotland. Heavy rain moving into the mainland of northern Scotland as well as Orkney, the Outer Hebrides overnight, accompanied by a strong wind. That rain also reaching parts of northwest England and Northern Ireland, some drizzly stuff over the hills. Further south and further east, some cloud breaks, and where we do have some cloud breaks first thing, there'll be a few mist patches and temperatures in the single figures. And it will be a colder start for the far north of Scotland as the rain and wind clear through. The wind changes direction, so 5 Celsius there for Shetland. But otherwise, it's double figures for much of Scotland, with the strong wind continuing. A lot of low cloud for western Scotland, some cloud breaks in eastern Scotland, but rain tending to move south. Northern Ireland, Northern England, low cloud, some drizzle about. But for southern parts, we start the day with either cloudy skies or some fog patches first thing. Any fog tending to clear. And then once again, those areas that saw some sunshine on Thursday are well placed to see sunny spells again on Friday. So the south and southwest, as well as the northeast. But we've got this area of cloud and rain sinking south across central Scotland. Brighter skies to the north of it, but feeling colder, 6 to 8 Celsius for the Northern Isles. Then into Saturday, any